Hello, curious people of the internet. Thanks for joining me. Today I am talking all about consensual non-monogamy. What is it? What are Americans' attitudes about it? Do they support it? Is it still taboo? We're gonna find out. And also, are there any protections for you and your polycule?
I don't even know what a polycule is.
Big love, aka polyamory, the practice of having multiple romantic and sexual relationships with the knowledge and consent of everyone involved. This relationship style carries a stigma, despite society's growing fascination with it. Buzzwords like ethical non-monogamy, consensual non-monogamy, open relationship, swinging, and polyamory can be found in articles across the internet at major media outlets, even at Vanity Fair, CNN, Cosmopolitan, and the New York Times. Ethical non-monogamy is also an option on Tinder. Tyson, you're on the dating apps. You're single. Why do you think it's socially acceptable for people like you to date around and have sex with multiple people, but identifying as polyamorous or non-monogamous is taboo?
You know, I've noticed that dating apps do have the non-monogamy and monogamy option, and I think as long as you state what you're looking for up front, it's not as much of a problem. However, being from Alabama, if I were to go back home and say I'm non-monogamous, I think that would be more of a taboo there and problematic, but here in LA, it's not as much as a problem. But let me throw the question back at you. How much do you think of a problem non-monogamy is outside of LA?
I think it's a threat. So like, for example, let's use like if there's a woman who is non-monogamous, there's a chance that people in her life, her friends, her family members, her coworkers, might assume that just because she's non-monogamous that she's gonna come for their partners, but that's not how it works. Yeah, people who are non-monogamous typically want to be with other non-monogamous people because if they go out with monogamous people, it just typically won't work out, at least not in the long run.
Oh, okay.
And across the country, polyamorous people have reported getting fired after a coworker found out and reported them to HR, or had non-monogamy used against them in court during child custody cases. They've also faced housing discrimination because there aren't any federal or state laws that protect people from discrimination solely based on relationship style preferences, but a new civil rights frontier is emerging to challenge that. Harvard Law School's Polyamory Legal Advocacy Coalition works to advance the civil rights of polyamorous families and communities. And for the first time in history, 3 municipalities have extended the legal definition of domestic partnerships to include polyamorous relationships. These communities are in the Boston areas of Somerville, Cambridge, and Arlington.
So being new to this topic, I guess, you know, when I think of polyamory, immediately I'm thinking it's just sex with multiple people, but what you're talking about is the logistics of having a relationship with multiple people and they all know each other, and even beyond that, a family with multiple people. What's that like? You know, what are the problems within that?
So with a polyamorous family, people can easily discriminate against that because it is so different. It's something that we don't see in the norm, even though it's not just people having orgies all the time. It's people having real life relationships, just maybe with multiple people. And you know, if there are children involved, it's not like these people are doing something sexual in front of their children. They're having their private relationships, but they may still have a family unit together. And what I admire about these people is that it takes so much trust, communication, openness. People are very honest with each other in these types of relationships, at least in theory. I'm sure some people are not, but the whole point is that you can be very honest about what it is that you want, what it is that you need, how many people you're dating outside of your primary relationship, etc. So there's a lot of honesty that has to go into maintaining relationships like this.
So with these new laws that are aiming at anti-discrimination for non-monogamous people, how much success are they having there?
Well, the Boston area ordinances are largely just symbolic because they can't extend beyond the local community. But if this ordinance becomes state law one day, polyamorous domestic partners could have things like legal rights to healthcare and disability insurance, paid family leave, hospital visitation, access to children at school, and property ownership. The Harvard Coalition is now working here in California to see if they can get similar ordinances passed.
Oh, well, I think it would be great if non-monogamous people and polyamorous people got the same protections that married people do, because it's kind of like unfair that, you know, we give all these benefits just to married people. It's like the government's trying to force you to get married.
While non-monogamy is still taboo, public attitudes on the issue are changing. A 2023 YouGov survey finds that most American adults, 55%, still prefer complete monogamy in their romantic relationships. But 1/3 of Americans describe their ideal relationship as monogamish, meaning something between total monogamy and total non-monogamy. In 2020, the number was a little bit higher, so it's gone down a little bit. But despite these changing attitudes, only 12% of adults say they have engaged in sexual activity with someone other than their primary partner with permission from that partner, while 20% of adults say they have outright cheated on their primary partner. What's interesting about this is that Americans are closely divided on whether they believe humans are monogamous by nature or not. 37% say yes. 30% say humans are not monogamous by nature, and 34% say they're not sure.
Interesting. So why do you think that public opinion is shifting on non-monogamy?
I think public opinion is shifting for many reasons. First of all, we live longer than ever. So if you're gonna get married, forever is a really long time. And people travel a lot for work. So maybe they have an arrangement with their spouse that allows them to seek, romantic or sexual relationships when they're on the job in another town or whatever. People's attitudes about relationships in general have changed. Divorce rates are almost 50% in the US. So I think people are getting a little bit more realistic about how to keep their marriages together and how to make relationships work long term. And then some people have specific kinks or sexual desires that their primary partner cannot fulfill. So they go outside of their marriage with permission, of course, in this scenario. And then there are also sometimes people who maybe are bisexual or pansexual, and they don't just want to be with a man or a woman, they want to seek outside arrangements.
So did this poll say whether men or women were likely to prefer non-monogamy?
Yeah, 46% of men between the ages of 18 and 44 prefer something other than monogamy, compared to 28% of women. But here's the surprising part. A growing body of scientific research shows that it's actually women, not men, who get bored with monogamy in long-term relationships.
Dang,
now,
really?
Yeah, they apparently lose sexual desire in long-term relationships. And this may not result in being unfaithful, but it does mean that there are a lot of women out there regularly avoiding sex with their spouse.
Oh no.
Yes. Various academic studies find that the underlying reason for this isn't being a mom or being busy at work or any other excuse. It's quite simply monogamy.
That reminds me of a clip from White Lotus.
So what's your guy's secret? How do you keep the spark alive?
Oh, the spark? No, that's not alive. That died. Yeah. I mean, love may be alive, but spark.
Sure.
This is a bummer. So, do you think that there's anything that long-term couples can do to keep the flames alive?
I'm not a therapist, but I can say consult your therapist. And one of my favorite couples therapists is Esther Perel. She wrote an awesome book on this topic called Mating in Captivity. I highly recommend it. Take a listen to what she has to say about this topic.
Why doesn't good intimacy guarantee good sex? Despite what we keep being told and taught, there seems to be sometimes a reverse-inverse correlation where growing intimacy sometimes stifles desire. That the more closely, intimately connected people actually become, the harder it is for them to make love to the person they love.
Captivity. Well, the book already describes it as captivity.
Yes, captivity. And she teaches couples how to unlock their erotic intelligence so that domestic life doesn't kill your sex life, because these two things repel each other, like you just said. Captivity. What makes you feel captive is the fact that you're constantly talking about diapers and taxes and bills, and that is not sexy at all.
Yeah, I've been there. So, non-monogamy and polyamory sounds great in theory, but couples get jealous of each other when it's just two people. Imagine it being 3 or even 4 people. How do they deal with that problem?
In my research, what I've seen is a word called compersion. This word pops up again and again and again, and as silly as it sounds, the sentiment is great. It's basically, compersion means that you feel sympathetic excitement and enjoyment for the excitement and enjoyment of your partner. So as your partner is going out into the world and sleeping with other people or enjoying romantic connections with other people, you feel good about it. And I don't think jealousy ever goes away. That is a human emotion. If you're having sex and relationships with other people and you're a human, you're probably going to feel a little bit of jealousy. I think you just have to sit with it, get used to it, and deal with it.
Okay, so as a woman, why do you think that women are wanting non-monogamy more than men?
In long-term relationships?
In long-term relationships.
Well, I can't speak for all women, but what I will say is that women go through these massive identity changes when they're in a long-term relationship, especially if they have children. Having a child completely changes your identity, and I think it's just human nature to desire something outside of your life as a mom and doing the same redundant thing over and over again.
So what is the difference between an open relationship and polyamory?
Ooh, that's a great question. So these are both forms of non-monogamy. So an open relationship typically is what we're talking about with those 1/3 of Americans say that they're okay with being monogamish. Monogamish is more like an open relationship. You're allowed to seek casual sexual encounters outside of your primary relationship, but not emotional ones. I don't really know how people pull this off because to me, you're human, you're having a connection with somebody, it seems like emotions would get involved, but hey, maybe some people can successfully do this. With polyamory, you're allowed to have multiple loving romantic relationships. So you can fall in love with multiple people and have physical relationships with them as well. It's not casual.
So that makes me wonder, how hard would it be for couples that have been in long-term relationships to suddenly switch from monogamy to non-monogamy?
Ooh, I think that would be really, really difficult, but I don't think that it's impossible. I think both people have to really have a solid relationship, be open to having very honest communication with each other, talking about what they want outside of their marriage. And also, if you go down this road, then you're gonna grieve your relationship as you know it. You're also going to be deconstructing monogamy and everything that society has told you about monogamy, and that's very difficult to undo. So I think there's a huge learning curve. I would recommend that people read all the books they can find about it, talk to their therapist about it, and go out there and see what happens.
So this whole time we didn't even answer the question up front. What is a polycule?
A polycule is another silly word used in the polyamorous community. It is basically the combination of the words polyamory and molecule, and that's just because when you link all these people together and you put them on paper, it looks like a polycule. I don't know. It's silly.
Okay.
I didn't invent the word.
Okay.
For more stories like this, click here, and to support the show, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Brigida.
All right, now I'm gonna go out and start my polycule.
Taboo!